All right, welcome. Today we're going to begin talking a little bit about inflation. How do we measure it? How do we calculate it? Why are we so concerned about it? Sometimes you'll hear in the news about inflation rates are creeping up or things like that. So we want to go over this important economic measure here that tells us a little bit something about our economy. So the first thing I want to talk about is what it is that we're measuring. Inflation just simply refers to the change in prices. And notice here that we want to use what's called the aggregate price level. Okay? And that means that we want to do overall prices. We don't concern ourselves with the price of a specific individual good, because those are pretty volatile and can change and fluctuate maybe more so than overall prices. And overall prices give us a picture of how we're spending on everything. So notice, right, we first need to determine, well, what is it that we're buying? All right, we need to come up with what does a typical family consume. Then we can assign some prices to those goods. We can compile this information into what's called a price index. So the first thing I want to go over is that idea of a market basket. All right, consumers buy all sorts of different things. Think of your own family, right? You go to the grocery store, how many different types of food that you buy, right? What do we spend our money on? And so the typical basket of goods and services that the family purchase is called a market basket. Here's what we're spending our money on. So the first thing we need to do is find a snapshot of what is it that we're spending money on. We're spending money on housing, food and beverages, recreation, vacation, trips, medical care, transportation, all these different things. And so we can compile all of that into this market basket and then start to do some point year-to-year comparisons. All right. So notice here, right? Let's say we wanted to know what the change was from 2011 to 2012. Okay? So we can get a sense of how fast did prices rise, or did they rise between 2011 and 2012. So the price index, right, we want to always compare back to our base year, in this case 2011. That's going to give us an apples to apples comparison using the same price. All right? Then we can use that to calculate out the inflation rate. Okay? And the inflation rate is the price index from year 2, 2012, minus price index of year 1, 2011, divided by the price index in 2011. It's going to give us a decimal. We'll multiply it by 100 to get a percentage, and that's going to tell us how much prices rose in a given year. All right. The most widely used price index that we concern ourselves with in measuring the macroeconomy is what's called the consumer price index. It's the most widely used measure of price inflation. Every month, the Bureau of Labor Statistics computes the prices in a market basket of about 80,000 goods and services that a typical urban family of 4 consumes. Now notice that pretty specific definition, right? A typical urban family of 4. Now you might be asking, well, wait, what about all the rural consumers? What about people who don't live in the cities? Why don't we care about them? This gives us the best statistical snapshot. It covers about 87% of the population. All right, and so this is the most widely accepted because it covers most people. Now, we also have a price index, consumer price index for non-urban or rural consumers. That's measured, it measures some different things that people buy, but most people in the United States are covered here under this idea of a consumer price index. So I'm going to show you here the Bureau of Labor Statistics website. Notice, right, it's monthly data on changes in the price paid for a representative basket of goods and services. And you can see they always give you a snapshot over here in the corner. In August 2013, notice, right, we had a 1 month percent change, right, of 0.1%. So let's take a look at what's actually in this market basket. All right, so here's a snapshot of it. Notice, right, it's covers all food, energy, even down to the electricity, commodities, new vehicle prices, used cars, apparel, all these different things. And it gets down to a pretty specific level. Let me show you here. All right, notice, right, we break it out by how much we're spending simply on cereal, meats, poultry, all of these specific things. And if you go down, it breaks it down even more. Right, here's food and beverages, energy. All right, so here we go. Right, notice that we're very specific about this because, we're trying to get a representative snapshot, so we want to make sure we cover all of our bases and cover anything that a typical urban family might buy. So you can look, and I'll put the link up here on Blackboard, and you can really kind of dig into this, and it's obviously very detailed, right? Here's how much we're spending on alcohol and furniture and energy and electricity. So it gives you a pretty good snapshot of what we're buying and prices. All right, so when we look at this, all right, this gives us that market basket of goods and services that the typical family buys. Now, we can also look at two other price indices or two other price measures. The producer price index measures sort of a similar idea, but only on what are producers buying. All right, and they're not buying these finished products like a family might be, that the consumers might be. They're buying raw commodities, steel, electricity, coal, and so all of these purchased by producers count towards the producer price index. Right, we can also use a measure called the GDP deflator. Even though it's not a price index, it's used the same way to compare what happens year to year. And so it turns out when you put all these together, they all correlate pretty closely with each other. All right, that all of these come about to the same area and tells us here's typically the rate of inflation. All right, notice we had years where it spiked really, really high, up to 25%. Right, we've also seen deflation in certain years. So we'll cover some of these concepts down the road here, but I just wanted to give you guys an introduction to this idea of inflation. How do we calculate it and measure it? So go ahead and complete the homework on Blackboard. There's a couple of links in there that'll take you to the Bureau of Labor Statistics website and ask you a couple of questions about the CPI in particular, because that's the measure you're really going to need to know. So go ahead and complete that, and I'll see you guys in class next time.